Why are households poorer after the budget? Welcome to Mark and Pete. Now, here's a thought.
If you're a financial magician and can pull a rabbit out of a hat, your tricks as a crafty politician may reveal you as a dirty rat. Well, many people have still got some issues with Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor of the Exchequer in the United Kingdom. Why? Well, the Institute of Fiscal Studies said that households would actually be worse off at the point of the election, despite what Mr. Hunt tried to do. Yes, the Chancellor announced to cut national insurance worth £10 billion. But despite this, this will be a record tax-rising parliament overall. Now, what does this mean for the average household? Well, Clergyman Pete, Jeremy Hunt, did he do his best, or really was he a complete failure?
Well, I would say, not wanting to overstate things, I would say that he was a complete failure for the economy and the people generally of Britain. But in terms of trying to get it such the Conservatives get back into power, I think he did make some reasonable moves. I think particularly the impression that there were tax cuts, particularly with national insurance, I think that was a good move. And in an election against Labour, they were always weak on tax, always seen as wanting to put tax up. That's the impression people have, whether or not they actually want to do it. And so I think a Conservative cutting tax always helps them in election season. What do you think?
Well, in my opinion, I think that he did make the gesture of the tax cuts. However, I don't think it goes far enough. Now, when I actually look at what are the things that he did, he brought in things like benefits and income support. That's always very good for the public. Now, what actually happened was there was the full child benefits. Now, for those who basically were earning previously between £60,000, there was a limit because it was only up to £50,000 that you get it. But the parental child benefit to be paid were up to now £80,000. So that does definitely help capture a number of people. But the thing is that this is the big thing. It's all very well putting tax on things like vaping, which is one of the things that he did. And, tobacco duty went up, yes, the favourite once again, £2 for 100 cigarettes at the same time. Now, when you look at how much cost has gone up from energy, from food, from clothes, goods, such as, products that we buy for our housing, it does not really cut it. Because at the end of the day, people are still having to pay far more over the last few years than they have ever done in their entire lives. This is a generation that has been in an austerity mode for quite a long time. Now, here's the other thing as well, because when you look at a household budget, for the vast majority, they're also looking at things like the mortgage rates and so on.
Yeah.
And as we know, interest rates have gone up. Good for those who are saving, for those who have got a lot of money. And I definitely feel that we've talked about this in previous podcasts, for those who are savers, it's been a rather austere, poor return of investment on your capital. But for households, they've really got the double whammy here because they have to pay more back subject to their mortgage conditions. But a lot of people are now having to do that. The other thing as well is rents are going up. So when you actually think about those who are not homeowners but are just simply renting, those people who have got to pay out to other stakeholders, whether it be their landlords, that's another cost. So taking 2p off national insurance, I'm afraid, just doesn't do enough. So that's the thing for me. And here's the other thing that I would say, which I think is the thing that I think he missed. I don't think that he really addressed the long-term approach. What is the Conservative government going to do in the next term? This was a real golden opportunity, not just to address today's issues, but to paint the picture going into 2025, 26 and onwards. There's always unknowns, of course. We know that the financial markets have been very, very volatile over the last few years. We've had wars, we've had inflation increases and lots of other things. So it is very difficult. But to me, I didn't get the sense of direction. This was a sticking plaster job. And I think that what we're seeing here is that it's also another point to note, a reflection of where the Britain is right at the moment. What movement has anybody got? We're in big problems with the national debt, so he has that to try and resolve. He's also got the problem that there are not enough people remaining in the workforce. We talked about this in another podcast previously. Was there's just not enough people staying in or coming back from say, for example, those who are in their 50s getting back into the workforce. Too many people now are at a retirement age, and pensions, that's the other factor as well to consider. There are a high number of people in this country who are now at pension age, and the country just simply can't afford it. And so, to me, I think that really what he's got to do, he's got to show some stronger measures on cutting back on certain areas, whether it be in the NHS, because there's just too much management layer, get the focus back onto the frontline service, put the money into areas of investment to manufacturing and industry, because at the end of the day, we need to be much more productive. Our GDP is good, but when you look at the productivity per person, it has gone down. So when you measure the output per capita per individual, that's not a good sign as well when you look at that trend. So to me, he's got to invest in the next generation of people, get them incentivized, give them a boost. I didn't see it, and that's the thing that is very worrying.
I think that yes, I think that the general, I think the consensus response of commentators, economists looking at this is that it really didn't do anything. What we had as a budget was really just a part of the party of political re-election campaign. There was nothing really in there of substance, and the problem is, just to be kind to the poor old Conservative government, they're in a terrible position. Mind you, it's their own bloody fault, because they'd locked down the country when they didn't need to do it. Yeah. They had a form of the flu across the country. By the time they were locking down, they must have known it, that this wasn't a serious disease. They should have known it from the start. Look, this we said on time, regular listeners, and we do, have hundreds of listeners every week who are regulars. So hi to you all. But regular listeners will remember that we were saying here on Mark and Pete right from the get-go, this is going to come back to bite us. And as it went on, we were saying this is going to be a bigger debt than the Second World War. This is going to be catastrophic, and there's nothing we would do. We've done it now. It's like, say, if you take all your money and flush it down the toilet, and you think, oh, I wish I'd undone that. Too late, you've done it.
Well, here's the worst part on that point, because if you look at the detail, he did call out that the COVID-era government loan scheme for small businesses extended until March 2026. Yeah, so there you go. But the thing here is that, is it now really more the death knell in the last nail in the coffin for the Conservatives? Because he did have an opportunity, and when you're manoeuvring the levers or shuffling the funds around, and you've got the opportunity to put in really serious measures to pave the way for success. Is it more that this was just a sort of passing gesture to say, look, we messed up the economy, hand it over to you, the Labour Party, when the next election comes? Is that really where they're almost resigned to defeat? Or do you think that it's more a case of, the Labour Party has no policy either? So
I think it's more that. I don't think they are resigned to defeat. I think that Labour is showing great weakness and lots of missteps. Politically, and so what I see is a Conservative Party who, they have over the years shown themselves terrible at governing the country, but brilliant at winning elections, and I wouldn't put it past them. So I don't think that they've given up at all. And I think that this budget was an attempt to do that.
Well, here's one of the things that I thought he was going to do, which would have helped. Now, when they say pulling a rabbit out of a hat, they mean conjuring something that essentially people weren't expecting. It was a surprise, but it was a positive thing. I thought he might have considered raising the single person's allowance. Now, as we know, it's around £12,000. Now, if you'd have raised it, or if he had raised it just a little bit higher, it probably would have put some money back into people's pockets, just enough just to sort of as a gesture. That was one thing. The other thing that I thought he would do is give some concessions for small to medium-sized businesses. At the end of the day, the bulk of the economy typically tends to come from the small to medium-sized companies. It doesn't take anything away, of course, from the big companies. They contribute successfully, both in terms of employment, investment, and many other things. But it's those smaller companies who are struggling so badly, because what the Chancellor has got to his advantage, he's got a track record. He can look at over the last 2 to 3 years, and he can see that small businesses, the alarming amount of small businesses that have gone bust in the last 3 years, that's not sustainable. If that continues, then the economy is just going to go on a further decline. So to me, I thought that he could have done that. Now, that would ultimately have helped those people, and we come back to the household environment, that those who are brave enough to run businesses, there are many out there, covering all different industries, which we need those skills, we need their business, we need the money to move forward, especially if we are to truly be independent of Europe. The idea is we came out of Brexit, we could take control of our own destiny. The only way you can control your destiny, if that's the route that you want to go, i.e. not be beholden to the EU project, is to have very strong foundation base in your manufacturing, in your engineering, as well as your service sector, of course, but small to medium-sized businesses. That's where I thought he would, perhaps pull a few rabbits out of the hat, and I didn't see anything. I saw some scuttling rats, folks, and to me, maybe that game plan of saying, well, it's the Labour Party who just are no better than us strategy is really what they're thinking. I wonder what our audience thinks. What do they think of the budget, and do they feel better off?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. A lot of politics is about feeling, and perception and that sort of thing. I don't think that this budget did enough in terms of perception, but who knows? There's the speech itself, then there's the spinning afterwards, and there's the real effects, of course. So, what does it actually mean to people? Well, time will tell. But I think as we just sum up our thoughts on this, what we're saying is, there were several missteps, things that could have been done to improve people's life. They weren't taken. There certainly wasn't an overarching attempt to reset the economy. What there was a few mean-spirited, but rather clever moves to try and win the election. Would that summarize it? So there you are. That's the budget
but I have to say, I still wonder which way the people will vote after this budget.
Well, personally, I think it's in the balance. I don't think it's a clear-cut Labour victory. They're probably still favourites to win.
It's a pity that our books overall aren't balanced.
Yes, that's a pity, isn't it? Yeah.
They're in balance.
Yes, but that's our comments on the budget for this time. Maybe we need another budget to sort out that budget. But for this budget, that's all our comments. What do you think, gentle listener? Chime in, let us know. We do love to hear your thoughts. Get in touch with us. Go to markandpete.com. Just make sure you're subscribed and you can comment on this and every episode. But for Mark and myself, it's bye for now and catch you next time.